Welcome to Conversations. My name is Deanna Lee, and our guest today is Dr. Jaqueline Becker. She's a New York State licensed psychologist and the author of More Time Ins, Not More Time Outs, Parent Without Bullying, a new approach to raising children. She's also a founder and president of Communication with Intention Incorporated. She has been in private practice for over 30 years, working with children, adults, couples, families, and corporations. Prior to private practice, Dr. Becker was a special education teacher in New York City and also served as assistant director and clinician for a division of a New York City private school that serves students with special needs. Dr. Becker, welcome to the show today.
Thank you. Nice to be with you.
Interested in talking about this topic. You want to focus on bullying and how parents are bullying children without realizing it. And we're not talking about bullying as it relates to child abuse cases. You're talking about things that are done unconsciously, daily by parents. Can you tell us?
You got it exactly right.
Can you tell us the difference between parents giving their children tough love and bullying them?
Yeah, and everybody means something different by tough love. I think if you mean disciplining, I'm not sure that's tough, but it's necessary. In truth, I mean, I'm all for discipline. Otherwise, how are you going to teach? In my mind, actually, discipline is what love looks like, because you want to make sure you're training your child to do things that won't get them hurt. That's the bottom line. So what I discovered, and that's why the title, More Time Ins, Not More Time Outs, is that I don't have a problem with time out as a disciplinary tool. I think it's fabulous. It's just so misused, and I think not understood in terms of the intent. I'll tell you how I started thinking about it. When I was supervising teachers, they invariably sent children for timeouts. And I would say, tell me, why did you give Joey a timeout today? And the teacher would usually say, I had it up to here with him. I couldn't take it anymore. He was just uncontrolled, had it up to here. And I thought about it because when I interview parents, and I said, well, why did you give Mary a timeout in this instant? And invariably, it was the same answer. Mm-hmm. I had it up to here with her, couldn't take it anymore. It was awful. And so I started to think about that. And I realized the timeout wasn't for the child. It was for the teacher or the parent.
That's great.
They had it up to here. That was the whole theme.
Uh-huh.
And so it was like, wait a second, that's not the goal of a timeout. The timeout is supposed to be to teach your child something. Mm-hmm. So it occurred to me, and what usually happens is way before the timeout is needed, there are at least 5 or 6 steps that are missed. You miss the cues that your child is giving you very often, so you get frustrated because you didn't deal with it when you should have dealt with it, which was way sooner.
And what are the cues?
Well, your child. Basically, if you know your child, you know when they're off. You know when they're a little off. You know if they're very off. You could tell by the way they look at you or don't look at you, or they start to be banging on the chair or doing something. You know it. What happens is we're often so busy, we let the little things slide because you got to watch the potatoes or something. You're doing something, and you let those things go. If you can just train yourself to pay attention to the smaller things when the child is off, you're going to preempt a lot of the need for the timeouts. And that's partly what I mean by time in. Really connecting with your child, watching very carefully, and really doing spending the time necessary to preempt that.
Parent Without Bullying, a new approach to raising children. How can parents self-test if they are bullying their children and perhaps maybe even inflicting long-term emotional damage on them?
Yeah. One thing I like to make a point that if you are mean to your child from time to time. You bully them every once in a while. Pardon me. You're not in control. I'm not worried about that if it's just a one-off or from time to time. That's not of great concern. It's only when it's a pattern that it really is a problem. Because one of the things also, if, let's say you make a mistake and you're mean to your child, and we know you're going to be, it happens, and you lose it or whatever, the most wonderful thing is if you own it with your child and actually apologize and say, you know, when I was saying it like this, I am sorry, that was not right. So I apologize to you for that, for how I sounded. Now, it may be the behavior you weren't pleased with, but how you maybe transmitted how you spoke to them. So that wasn't your question. Go back to...
Oh, no, you're answering it perfectly. I'm following you. Yes, it makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but in terms, you asked me about self-testing.
Right. How can parents self-test to see if they're in the middle of being a bully to their children? How do they know?
Well, you can actually feel that if you pay attention to your own energy and you're aware of yourself and you're centered. You know the difference when you're in control and out of control. It's just being more conscious of paying attention to it, because we all know it. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's the unconscious motivations very often is what gets us in trouble. You know, that's when you do the bullying, when you're not aware. And it's this simple. You know, if you have a conversation with someone and you come back from it and you say, wish I didn't say that. It's no different with you and your child. Very often, you just wish you didn't say something one way or another way. That's all it means to be unconscious. That's all we need to take responsibility for so we can be in control of each moment. So it's an awareness that we're all, and it's a word I invented to help people understand, we're bi-conscious beings. We're not just conscious, we have an unconscious. And that drives the behaviors that get us into trouble. So it's taking responsibility. When you're off, you can actually know if you're off by how you feel, if you're paying attention. Like I ask you to pay attention to your child and watch the nuances of how they look and how they feel. Do the same with yourself. Do you see what I'm saying?
That's very good advice. Absolutely. You're listening to Conversations, and our guest today is Dr. Jaqueline Becker. She's the author of Time Ends, No More Timeouts. Parent Without Bullying. It's a new approach to raising children. So, I
want to add one thing to that, if I may.
Sure.
Something that would be helpful. Mm-hmm. Because very often we self-bully. We don't realize it. And that's a way you can keep track of that you probably be bullying your child if you're bullying yourself. For example, let's say you say yes when you mean no, and you do it a lot. Why? That doesn't make sense. There's something that's unconsciously driving you to not regard yourself with really great empathy and care. You'll do the same thing with your child. So if you look for ways that you're not taking care of yourself, let's say you won't go to a party because you think you look too fat, too thin, or your hair is funny. You're going to transmit those kinds of things to your child. So the more you pay attention to the way you treat you, the more you'll be able to be more in control of how you treat your child.
As children who were bullied by their parents become teenagers and adults, are they more likely to become bullies themselves?
Yes. There is no question that those who are bullied bully.
What do you say to parents who think recent generations of parents have been too soft on their kids in terms of discipline and accountability?
Many of them are. They're just not taking charge. There is no child who really wants to have the power in the situation because they want the adult to take care of them. It makes them feel safe if they're disciplined. That's why I'm saying it's not the fact that discipline is not bad. As I said before, it's what love looks like. Discipline is good if you do it right. You don't have to be hostile. You don't have to be angry. You just have to be comfortable with the fact that it's your responsibility to set limits and teach your child what their limits are. Because if you don't, somebody else in the world is going to, and it won't be pretty.
Do you think the extent of social and political bullying can be remedied with your approach to parental bullying?
Yes, that's what my prayer is. And truthfully, and here's the interesting thing. There are many great bullying programs implemented in schools and different organizations, but in my opinion, and this is my opinion, unless you do this part that I'm asking people to do, to become more conscious of their behaviors on a deeper level, it's not going to matter, because it'll just keep happening. You know, you in order to really make an impact in changing basically the tenor of our time, you have to start right in the house, right with each one of us. It'll never be collective unless there's an individual. There is no collective without the individual. And each of us is responsible for the tone we put into the world. That's just true. And if we don't, it's so funny. You could see, I'll use this example. You go to church or prayer, wherever you pray, and this discipline, and everybody knows what they're supposed to do. And then you step outside and you listen to the conversation. It's not kind very often. It's not implemented. There's something else that takes over. You can't just give lip service to bullying and mistreating people. You have to really do the homework. We have to all be counted.
Our guest is Dr. Jaqueline Becker. The book is More Time Ins, No More Time Outs, Parent Without Bullying. And can we find this book on Amazon?
Amazon, and Barnes & Noble has it as well.
All right. Dr. Becker, thank you so much for taking time to talk to us today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I'm Deanna Lee, and this is Conversations.